Hello everyone. In this new tutorial, we will make a flower using different modeling techniques in Blender. So let's start with this one. Select the cube and add a 3-level subdivision modifier with Ctrl 3 and shade smooth the object as well. I will slightly move the object above the grid. Next, press Shift D to create a duplicate. Right-click to snap it back and move it to the right side. This part will become the flower petals. Using the transform tool, I will make the shape thinner and longer. Currently, the origin pivot point of the object is in the middle, so any rotation will happen from there. We need to change it. Right-click and set origin to 3D cursor. Now the object will rotate from the starting origin point instead of the middle. Next, press Shift A and add a empty plane axis object. This type of object does not contain any geometry. It is useful for using as a reference point for storing position, rotation or scale values. Select the petal object and add a array modifier which will repeat the same object multiple times. Change the count to 8, turn off relative offset and turn on object offset. In the object selection menu, pick the empty object which we just created earlier. Nothing will happen yet. In case the shape of your petal objects look incorrect, then press Ctrl A for the transform menu and apply rotation and scale to fix it. Select the empty object. If we rotate it, you can see it now controls the additional copies created by the array modifier. Undo the rotation. We will rotate the empty object along the blue axis to position our other petals. Hold Ctrl key alongside to enable snapping so we can get precise rotation value. You can also set the rotation value from the corner setting menu as well. In case we need to reset the rotation of the empty object, then press Alt R to bring it back to its original position. Then you can set any other rotation or use different array count. The main thing about using the array modifier is that all copies are linked with the original object. So if we make any change in the main object, then the change will be applied on the other array objects as well. Just keep in mind that all changes should be done in edit mode. I will refine the shape of the petal object, but you can try making any other design as well. I am making the shape more thick and add one edge loop in the middle. The outer edge face can be moved up. The middle object can be made a bit more bigger. If the empty object is not clearly visible and hidden inside the objects, then in the viewport display, enable in front setting. This will make the empty object visible and selectable from any view. Now select all the parts. Move them up and rotate them as well. Hold Ctrl key while rotating to make it easier to see the rotation. To add a stem part for the flower, Shift A and add a Bezier curve. Make it bigger. Rotate it with RY90. Position it roughly so it goes in the back of the flower and downwards. Use the edit mode to further refine the shape of the stem. In the curve properties, open the geometry section and increase the depth value to add some thickness to the stem part. To make the curve shape smooth, in the edit mode, select both top and bottom point. Right click and select subdivide to add one more additional point. In the properties, change the resolution to 12. Next, we will add the leaves. Duplicate the middle object and move it down. You can reset the object's rotation with Alt R. Make the shape slightly more thick and round. Also, you can use the local transform orientation, which makes it easier to make changes aligning the axis with the shape. In the edit mode, I will add one edge loop. Move the front edge more out. Select the entire loop and move it backwards. Use the X-ray mode to select all the inner vertices which may not be visible and make the shape smaller. One more edge loop can be added and further refine the shape. Let's make a duplicate leaf object for the other side. But this time use Alt D instead of Shift D. This method will create linked instance copy. Any changes we make in one of the linked objects will be updated on the other. The only thing again here to remember is that changes should be made in the edit mode. In case you want to remove the linked connection, then in the data properties, you can click the object number to make it independent. Select everything before moving up. Change the transform orientation back from local to global. Otherwise, all parts will move in different directions depending on their rotation. Now we will add a base container pot for the flower. Add a cylinder with 12 sides, make it bigger and position it in the lower side. In the edit mode, select the bottom face, make it smaller, press I to add a small inset of faces. On the top side, select the face, add two inset of faces and press E to extrude the shape downwards. You can isolate the object to see it more clearly in the viewport. With the inner face selected, press P to make it into a separate object. Add a 3-level subdivision on the outside object and shade smooth as well. I will add one more edge loop in the middle of the object and scale it outside. Select the inner edge loop, press S to make it smaller and go inside. The rest are small adjustments in the shape. You can do any change as you like and you don't have to follow my exact steps. Move the bottom point of the stem inside a little. Switch to the material preview. We can start assigning some materials to our flower plant. I am just using simple color for different parts. Drag and drop on the objects. Use any color you like. Now we will add lighting to our scene. We will be using EV engine. Switch to the rendered view. Shift A and add a sunlight. If you already have a light in the scene, you can set it to sun or remove it. Increase the strength to about 20 and rotate the direction so the light is coming from the front. Use a light yellow color. For additional lighting, go in the environment property, click the color node. In most cases, you can use the environment texture node and load an HDR map in it for adding extra light. I have shown this step in my previous tutorials as well. This time we will use a sky texture node. There are three types of skies which we can use. All have some settings under them which you can change to control the lighting. We will use the Pritham sky. I will leave the default settings. In the render properties panel, turn on ray tracing. It makes the reflections, lighting, shadows slightly more better. Next in the color management, we will use AGX with high contrast setting. Back to the sunlight, reduce the strength. Another important setting here is the angle. If we use lower value, then light shadows will be sharp. Higher values will give soft shadow results. After some light and model adjustments, here is the result which I liked. One modeling tip I would like to add here. In the edit mode, you can select any edges, right click and use edge crease to sharpen the look. Move the mouse to see the result. You can also find edge crease setting in the transform menu while in edit mode. Just make sure the edges are selected on which to apply. Please note for this tutorial I am going through some things in a fast way, but you should take your time. You can try exploring different designs and shapes. Let's add some eyes and mouth part for the flower. Duplicate the middle object, make it smaller and add a mirror modifier. Create a new black material with a lower roughness to make the eyes more reflective. For the mouth shape, add a circle object. Use 12 sides. In the edit mode, you can remove the top vertices so we are left with the lower part. Rotate and position it on the front. Right click and convert to curve. Add some thickness. Close the open end with cap setting. You can use a subdivision modifier with 2 or 3 levels to make the shape smoother. Back in the rendered properties, in the ray trace settings, go to fast GI approximation setting. You can try the ambient occlusion method for some extra shadow depth. In the background, I added an open object shape. Using a plain object, I extruded the shapes to give it a wall type look. And on that, use a bevel modifier for making the edge joints round. Finally, if you like to add some outlines to your model, first switch to the camera view. Add a grease pencil scene art object. However, it can slightly affect Blender performance, so use it only when you need to. Before rendering, check on all objects if your subdivision modifier viewport and render levels are the same, so the render looks correct as it is in view. And this completes the tutorial. From here you can continue making your own different designs. If you like to see more in the future, please give this video a like, subscribe and turn on notification bell. Thank you very much for watching and I will see you in the next one.